Hi, my name is Holly Carranza. I'm a life coach here at Gateway Counseling Center. And one of the things I want to talk about today is why women keep being attracted to the same kind of man when they know better. So that's the topic of discussion for today. And so a lot of women get frustrated. Why do I attract, or why am I attracted to the same kind of man? The same thing keeps happening. Maybe it's a different name, different face, different personality, different style, but it all ends up with the same emotional discouragement and situation. So maybe he's emotionally unavailable. Maybe he starts out really charming and then becomes inconsistent. Maybe he's just not able to emotionally connect with you. There's lots of various different reasons, and when a healthy man comes along, you're like, I don't know, he's kind of boring. I'm just not really connecting with him. So that becomes very puzzling for a lot of women, because intellectually they know what they want, but emotionally they go after something totally opposite. So the truth is, attraction is rarely logical. So most attraction patterns are built long before dating ever happens. They're rooted in emotional conditioning, our identity, self-worth, subconscious beliefs that we have, and familiarity. So until those deeper patterns are understood, a woman can continue repeating the same romantic cycle without fully understanding why. And that's what we want to talk about today, some of the reasons why. First, why could possibly be familiarity feels like chemistry. So one of the biggest reasons women repeat that cycle pattern is because the nervous system mistakes familiarity for compatibility. So for example, if a woman grew up with a lot of emotional inconsistency, criticism, unpredictability, or emotional distance, those dynamics feel strangely normal to her because that's what she's used to. Even if they've caused pain, she's going to recognize them. She's going to emotionally recognize them. So later in life, when she meets a man who creates that similar kind of emotional experience, her body interprets that as attraction. And some of the things she might say are, oh, there's just something about him. I can't explain why I'm drawn to him. He makes me feel alive. The connection feels intense. But intensity is not always compatibility. Sometimes intensity is anxiety. So a healthy relationship often feels very unfamiliar at first because it lacks that emotional chaos that she's used to. There's no games, there's no emotional highs and lows, there's no uncertainty about where the relationship stands. And for someone that's very conditioned to associate love with emotional struggle, peace can initially feel very boring. So that doesn't mean she wants toxic relationships. It just means her emotional wiring has not yet learned to associate stability or peace with love. A second reason why the cycle might continue is women often date their emotional blueprint. Now, every person develops an emotional blueprint for relationships, and this blueprint is created through childhood. Past heartbreaks, cultural messaging, and our early attachment patterns. So without even realizing it, a lot of women seek partners who reinforce what they already believe about themselves. So let me give you two examples of that. A woman who subconsciously feels unworthy, she may chase an emotionally unavailable man because that distance, their distance between one another, confirms her internal belief that love must be earned. So that would be one example. Another example is a woman raised around a lot of inconsistency. She may confuse unpredictability with passion. So I think what the painful part about this particular dynamic is this usually happens below your conscious awareness. So it's not like she's intentionally choosing pain, she's choosing what emotionally matches her internal programming. Okay, a third one, another reason a woman might repeat patterns is fantasy overrides reality. And let me tell you, I see this one a lot in women that I see. So they fall in love with the potential instead of reality. So we as women, we're naturally more nurturing and more optimistic. So we can see a man who's full of potential. If I know what this could be, if only he would, get healed, or he would mature or learn how to communicate better or become emotionally available, then we can have the relationship we always wanted. But this does create a dangerous emotional trap. So instead of evaluating the relationship for what it is today, she looks at what it could be tomorrow or in the future. And she may ignore the red flags by saying, oh, he had a tough childhood, he's really trying, he's different when he's around me. So over time, what happens is she gets very attached to instead of being attached to the actual relationship, she gets attached to the possibility of the relationship. And this is why so many women stay too long in emotionally draining situations. So they're loyal to the future version of the man versus looking at the man as he is right now today. One of the big questions I ask women is, if nothing changes, are you okay? Do you accept the way he is? If nothing changes in the future, can you live with that? And so that is a big question to ask yourself if you find yourself in that situation. Another reason for the cycle could be trauma bonds. So trauma bonds can feel like love. So some women repeatedly choose emotionally unhealthy partners because the emotional inconsistency actually creates an addictive attachment pattern. So when you get when affection is given to you and pulled away from you, unpredictability, what that does is the brain releases a stronger emotion chemicals. So you get these very euphoric highs. So if you've had these, contrast that with very low lows, and then you get that euphoric high, that chemical is released and creates that addiction. So that's what a psychologist calls an emotional trauma bond. So in these relationships, what you're typically going to see is the following. Affection becomes a reward. Inconsistency creates obsession. And uncertainty creates emotional attachment. So this is where a woman starts to think, oh, I can't stop thinking about him. No one has ever affected me like this. I know he hurts me, but I still want him. So when she experiences, what she experiences when this is happening, she is actually saying, there's an emotional dependency created by the instability. So what you want to be aware of is healthy love does not constantly activate fear, confusion, or emotional survivor mode. That is not what a healthy relationship should look like. So if you're experiencing that constantly in your relationship, you really need to take assessment of it. Another thing is women haven't fully defined what healthy love feels like. Maybe they've been up and down in these chaotic relationships and they don't know what healthy love feels like. So they know what they don't want, right? They know what they don't want, but they've never really clearly identified of what they do want. They say, I don't want toxic. I don't want emotionally unavailable men. I'm tired of being hurt. But yet they can't quite yet recognize what that looks like, okay? They can't recognize emotional safety, consistency, mature communication, calm intimacy, or mutual effort. All right, so at this point of the game, they haven't been able to figure that out. So what happens is when healthy love appears, right, it's not going to trigger, or may not trigger, the same emotional excitement that they're used to. Remember, they're used to this up and down, chaotic. Remember, I talked about this good person may appear boring to them. So what happens is you get this internal conflict. The mind wants peace. I know what I want. I want peace, secure attachment, but the nervous system craves that familiarity. So a healing can begin when a woman learns that love does not need to feel chaotic to be meaningful. You don't need to feel chaotic to be meaningful. And our self-worth really does shape a lot of our romantic choices. So a woman's relationship choices often reflect the level of love and respect that she feels she deserves. So if a woman struggles with her self-worth, and that may be unconsciously, she might tolerate poor treatment, over-explain bad behavior, chase validation, settle for inconsistency, or stay in relationships that just drain her emotionally. So people rarely rise above the emotional standards they secretly hold for themselves. So this is why your personal healing matters so much. Once a woman generally believes she deserves consistency or honesty, effort, emotional safety, then her attraction pattern begins to start to change naturally. So then you stop romanticizing unemotionally available men, and you're no longer going through this up and down emotional struggle as a valuable proof of love. So it's good to be aware of that. It can get better and it can change. So two big questions, all right? So it's good news that the pattern can change. And the first breakthrough that's going to happen is when you stop asking yourself, why do men keep doing this to me? And you start asking yourself, why am I emotionally drawn to this dynamic? Okay? That particular question can change everything for you. It shifts from blame to self-awareness, not self-blame, but self-understanding. So what can happen? This is the end goal, right? The emotionally unavailable man no longer feels exciting. The inconsistent man no longer feels mysterious. The chaotic relationship no longer feels romantic. Instead, you've got emotional maturity. That is what becomes attractive to you. The consistency feels safe to you. And then peace begins to feel powerful and not boring anymore. So, some final thoughts for today. Women who repeatedly fall for the same kind of man, you're not weak, foolish, or incapable of love. Most of the time, they're just operating on an unconscious emotional conditioning that they probably haven't fully recognized yet. So, the heart often repeats what the nervous system already understands. So even when your conscious mind wants something different, that's why there's a tendency to be drawn to the familiar. And real transformation is going to happen when a woman stops chasing that chemistry. I mean, chemistry is good, don't get me wrong, but when you just stop chasing the chemistry alone and you begin paying attention to emotional health, consistency, values, self-respect, all of these things, because that is what makes a lasting love relationship, not all the up and down emotional chaos. And that is when your relationship is built on emotional safety, mutual effort, trust, and peace. I hope that was helpful for you today, and I want to thank you for joining me today. If you would like more information about myself or about Gateway Counseling Center, please visit our website at gatewaycounseling.com. And I'll see you next time.